Alright guys, it's Chatterbox Reviews, coming at you guys with my review for Succession Season 2, Episode 7. Alright, so we're back for Succession, and once again, this one is quite late, so I do apologize for that. Just been really busy during the week, and then I watch it, and then I want to do the review, run out of time, and so anyway, so we're here again on a Friday, but this might be going up Saturday. Anyway, so the episode is tomorrow, right? Episode 8's tomorrow. We only have 3 more episodes to go after this one this week, and I'm just really looking forward to the rest of the season, especially the finale, so we'll have to see if they do something similar to Season 1, where that finale really shook things up for the show going forward, especially into this season at the very beginning, and so we'll have to see what they go with for that one. But as for this episode, I thought I'm going to go out on a limb. I think it was the weakest one of the season so far. Now, that's not saying it was a bad episode. There's still a lot of great things in this episode that I really liked, actually. And so, especially the ending, too. The endings have always been really good in the last few episodes here. Just this season, I guess, in general. Kind of placing this cliffhanger, this kind of shocking revelation at the end that shakes everything up for the next episode, that type of thing. And again, I think the pacing was a little bit unbalanced once again, a little bit too slow getting into it, and then kind of ramp things up at the very end, where I thought as the first few episodes of the season did this really well. So I'm still, crowning the Safe Room episode 4 as the best episode so far this season, but we'll have to see. I mean, some people think, the last couple episodes were the best. So, of course, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this episode. What did you think of it, and how does it compare to some of the other episodes this season? And also, what are some of your predictions, / what are you looking forward to going forward in the rest of the season here, as we only have 3 more episodes, as I said. So I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on that one, and if you enjoy this review, please leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel. Would really appreciate that as well. But without any further ado, then, let's get into a bit of a recap of the episode. This one hopefully will be a little bit shorter, since it's, been so long since probably most people have seen the episode. I'm going to try to shorten things up here a little bit. Then we'll get to my rating, favorite character, and some more overall thoughts and predictions as to what I see might happen going forward in the rest of the season. And so we'll get to that. But first, before any of that, I just want to congratulate Succession on the Emmy win. That one, so I made my Emmy recap and discussion video on the channel. I know it's really, really long, and I'm working on putting out timestamps for all the discussion points I talked about, so it's a little bit easier to access. So that'll be done probably by the time this video is up. So if you want to check that one out, like I said, it's about 50 minutes long, but I'm going to put a timestamp in there where you can see me talk just about Succession. I was so happy for Jesse Armstrong and the whole crew behind Succession as they won Best Writing for a Drama Series for the finale episode. Just an amazing award, amazing accomplishment for Jesse Armstrong, the showrunner for this. So, I didn't expect Succession to win anything, honestly. I thought Game of Thrones will be in here, and they barely won anything. And so Succession gets writing, and just so happy for them. So if you didn't know, now you know, and if you did see it, I'm sure you'd probably love to share your thoughts, and I love to hear them, so we can talk about that as well. But anyways, without out of the way, let's get into this one. So I'm going to split this recap up into different sections per character. So first we'll start off with Tom and Greg, who had probably the smallest subplot here in the episode, but I thought was still really good. So we start off here by Tom attending this interview, which, as he says, is supposed to be this kind of softball interview, supposed to be this investigation into the cruises scandal that came out last episode, right, at our Justies, and that whole thing. But it's just supposed to be, basically just for the outside world to say, oh, we're looking into it, right? We're putting an investigation into this cruise thing, but everyone knows on the inside, it's not really anything to worry about. But, so it's supposed to be a softball thing. No one's supposed to be worrying about it. However, as he gets into this interview, and the way he greets them too, he's like kind of, acting like it's not a big deal or anything like that, and they're like really serious about this, and so he sits down and he's bombarded with tough questions just right off the bat from the beginning here, about, are there any documents that people have destroyed and all this stuff, and it's just like getting right to it. And so Tom of course, not prepared for this, right? So he immediately gets out of the interview, lies about having to go pee or something like that, right? Gets out of the interview and goes to find Greg. Of course, this happens though after he basically he goes to Shiv, right? So he goes and finds Shiv in the building. This is all during the time where he's supposed to go back to the meeting. So he goes to Shiv, and she reassures him that he isn't being set up for this, right? Tom's all worried now that he's being the fall guy now for this, right? That they're going to find out it was him and Greg, and everyone's going to, be fine, and then he's going to go down and all that stuff, which, of course, is not, the purpose of it all, but that's, of course, what he's worried about. He's all paranoid about it, and I love this because he always has been paranoid about this, even since the Death Pit storyline in Season 1 there, right? All that stuff, he's always been so paranoid about it, and wanting to get this out of the way, and all this stuff, so just a really great situation to put Tom's, the character into here. So anyway, so Shiv reassures them, and she doesn't even seem to care about what's going on. Of course, she's always kind of focused on herself in that relationship. But anyways, so he goes to find Greg, who's in his apartment, right? And he's having people over. And so he goes in, he tells Greg that he needs to know where the documents are that he kept, right? Because Greg uses this, I think it was 2 episodes ago, or in Safe Room, right? Episode 4, where he says, I have these documents, and I don't want to use them as blackmail, but, so basically threatens and gets this new office, this new promotion, all this stuff, right? But this also lets Tom realize, or at least let him know, of course, there are documents out there, and these documents need to be destroyed if he's going to go in that interview and lie to them, right? And they cannot uncover these documents. So Greg then refuses. He's like, oh, no, I want to keep my insurance intact here, right? If something else happened. And Tom... And this was really smart for Tom to do as well, and you really think about this, he should have done this earlier, right? So Tom blackmails Greg that he will tell Logan if he doesn't give them to Tom, right? So he says he'll tell Logan that Greg's hiding documents on them, and kept these top secret documents that were supposed to be destroyed, right? And so this is something Tom could have used against Greg way before for the promotion. So I think when Tom says he was actually impressed with him and all that, I think he was actually telling the truth. I think he really did see this move from Greg as he was actually quite impressed with it, right? And but now he's just using blackmail. It's all over. The fun and games is over. He needs those documents, and he says, he's gonna tell Logan, and he says, I will break your legs, right? And I just love it. Of course, it was part of a bigger kind of analogy or metaphor that he made up there. But yeah, he says, I'm gonna break your legs if you don't give them to me, essentially, right? So he stays with Greg overnight, and then they go into the office the next morning because he's not letting Greg out of his sight, right? He's not gonna let him go and take more copies of those documents, right? So they go to the office the next day. They secure the documents from Greg's secret folder in his desk at work. This was so great. This scene here where they find the documents, and it's like, these documents could really bring down cruises. Like, this could really cause some big damage to ATN, and especially Tom, right? Tom and Greg. And this guy's just keeping these documents in his desk, in the folder named Secret, right? And Tom just kind of outlines the ridiculousness of this, as he kind of pokes fun at Greg, and Greg's like, shut up, right? And Tom's like, watch it. So just an awesome back and forth here from Greg and Tom. We also see Greg got a haircut in this one. Just hilarious, right? He's now being called Gregory, all this stuff. Like, it's just so great, right? So anyway, so they find these documents in the secret folder that's in Greg's desk. And then later we see them towards the end of the episode there. They're burning them on the balcony, right? So they're taking these copies that they think are the only copies left. They're putting them in the fire. They're burning them all. So, we also find that Greg is recording this entire conversation on his phone from his suit pocket there, and we see him practicing in the bathroom before. It's probably the most hilarious scene, and it actually doesn't make a lot of sense in terms of, like, what does that even mean? Until we get to this scene, where he's, like, trying to get these words out of Tom's mouth. He's like, we're burning the secret documents, right? And so he's trying to get these, at least this proof on tape, right? He's trying to record this because he's desperate to get this insurance policy. Burning these pages means that his policy's completely gone. And so he's trying to record this. So then we see Tom, the lighter isn't working on the fire. So he walks away, and Greg quickly grabs a couple of the pages and he slides them in his belt, right? In his pants and his waist. Hilarious, right? And so he's still trying to get this leverage on Tom. He's still trying to secure this insurance policy, if you will, because he's so worried that, okay, this may actually go wrong. Like, Tom may actually, basically bring me down with the ship, right? And that's totally what Tom would do, right? So Greg's worried. Definitely a reasonable worry there. Anyways, we see Tom is drunk enough not to realize it, and I'm not sure that he's like totally drunk, but he's at least quite buzzed, if you will, right? So he's a little bit out of sorts, and so he doesn't even realize Greg putting him in his pants, whereas I think if he was completely sober, he may have detected that. But anyways, so Greg always one step ahead, right? He's always kind of trying to get the upper hand on things, and so he keeps a couple of the pages where Tom thinks they just burned them all, and Greg still has that leverage, along with that voice recording now in his suit pocket. So we'll have to see what happens there. So he's one step ahead, but not really, right? Because he has those documents in his desk at work in the secret folder. And so there's a lot of stuff. And I do want to comment because I've seen it everywhere pretty much on Twitter and on Reddit a little bit. People think that Greg's going to be the next CEO, right? Like he's the only innocent one out of all the group of the candidates, if you will. And I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be him. Maybe that's what they're building to. But I just think he's kind of, he's kind of this... I don't know. Like, at times he shows these moments of like, okay, wow, Greg, like something like this, like, recording the conversation on his phone. But then at other moments, he keeps his top secret documents that could bring down possibly the whole company in his desk at work, right? And so it's just these things where, he has these moments of really, really impressive moments, and then he just has moments like that. But anyways, it's going to be interesting to see what Greg plays, what part he plays in this whole thing of Succession, right, of the show, and see, how far he can get into the company and how this relationship with Tom will go. So, anyways, just thought that was a really great subplot. So, all right, so now let's get into the meat of the episode. So, Logan, Kendall, and Roman, right? So, they gather along with Jerry and Hugo, I believe. So, after learning of a video Sandy and Stewie have put out to the shareholders of Waystar Royco, basically encouraging this loss of confidence, right? Or lack of confidence in Logan, right? And in the family, I guess, in general, but mainly Logan. So this is kind of spurring off of what happened at our Jestys, I believe, about Shiv's comments, and about other stuff too that's kind of been brewing, right? And so they're sending out this video to the shareholders, which we actually do see, about basically, like, you should really reconsider your share in this company, and if you do want to keep that share, maybe think about electing somebody else as the CEO. Right? Maybe it's time to get Logan out of there and put someone else in. And so this whole thing just, of course, gets Logan right away. And so they find the need, they find that they need, right, to once again secure the confidence of a few significant shareholders, right? There's not all of them, but they have heard kind of rumors, rumblings, that a few of the shareholders may have either been convinced by this video or already kind of on shaky ground about things, especially after the whole cruise scandal, right? And this, of course, uses that as kind of a jump start to this video that they sent out. And so anyways, so with that, they realize, okay, there's a few people here that have significant shares that we actually do care about, that we should probably talk to and make sure they kind of get this renewed confidence in the company, so that they don't vote us out at the next shareholder meeting, which is coming up, by the way. And I've been talking about it in other episodes too, so I'm really looking forward to see this meeting. Hopefully we get to see it in the next coming episodes and see what that kind of brings on for the family. But maybe it is just something they mention and we'll pick up after it. I'm not really sure. Anyways, so this includes Kendall, Roman, and Shiv's mother, who owns a 3% share, and that's an interesting one there. Again, we haven't seen the mother quite. I guess season 1 is the last time we saw her with the wedding, and we don't see her a lot. They don't talk about her a lot. but I like bringing her up here, and I really like that storyline there. And so, of course, she's living in London. So while they are in London, Logan then will meet with the other significant shareholder there, who's a man who has a 4% share in the company, and hopefully they'll be able to work things out with him. Right, Logan will be able to talk to him while the kids go to meet their mom and make a deal with her. And so this is really. A funny point, because he's not even willing to negotiate with their mom, right? He just wants them to go, and kind of using his kids to broker this deal. But of course, it's without Shiv. He's just going to send Kendall and Roman to attend and leave Shiv at home once again for this plan, essentially, or for this mission, right, to get the mom to sign on, which is interesting because, as we learn, Shiv is probably the favorite kid to the mom, and so it's definitely an interesting decision to leave her home. But of course, we see she comes in. So as they board the plane then, and just before they board the plane, we had this great scene in the car ride, basically to the tarmac, I'm assuming, with Roman and Logan sitting in the back seat together. That was just such an interesting scene, where basically Logan actually confronts, or I guess kind of brings up at least, what happened at Argestes and him slapping Roman in the face, causing him to bleed, I think, a little bit at the end of that episode. And he brings this up. He actually does. And he's like, well, did I even make contact? Like, that's not something I do, right? If I knew you were there, I wouldn't have done anything. I wouldn't have raised my hand, right? And all this stuff. And Roman's just accepting it. He's just playing it off. He's like, yeah. No, I don't think you did. No, I don't think you made contact, and all that stuff. So just a really interesting scene, and seeing this dynamic between Roman and Logan here. It's like, okay, Logan's kind of apologizing, but not really. And so you just see this dynamic, and it's like, you can't win, right? I mean, if Roman says, like, no, you did make contact, Dad. Like, what was that about? Logan would just push it off and say, no, it didn't happen, or whatever. So Roman's just kind of going along with it. Anyways, it was just a little scene, but I thought it was definitely interesting. And it was a little bit comedic as well, right? See the reaction. But it was also really dramatic and really showing this dynamic once again, where I think we see a lot in this episode with Shiv and Logan in particular. So anyways, so we see Roman and Kendall then meet Rhea, who Logan has brought along and offered a ride to. So I'm not sure if it's actually true, but she says that she's going on this trip and that she needed a ride there anyways. So Logan just happened to be there and happened to offer her a ride. Obviously, I don't think that's what happened. I think, he directly asked her to come along. Anyways, so both of them, Kendall and Roman, immediately think that they're fucking, right? They make these jokes about, how, or I guess Roman does, Kendall doesn't, but Roman, makes some jokes about how, Logan and her would even, be able to fuck and all this stuff. Like, obviously that dark humor, that sexual humor, from Roman coming in there. But it's just hilarious, right? It's like the first thing they think, oh, yeah, they're fucking. You think yeah, I think they are, right? So anyways, it's just a hilarious dynamic there. And this plays out throughout the episode too, when Roman and Kendall constantly kind of make these jokes to Logan, like to his face, about fucking Rhea and this relationship and all this stuff. And it's just hilarious too, because later when Naomi Pierce comes in, and Kendall and her are still together, we learn, just so funny because they're questioning Logan and saying all this stuff about Rhea, like, oh, you're together with Rhea and all this stuff. And then Naomi walks in, and it's just so funny. It's just so funny. Anyways, so at this point, then Rhea, Logan, and the two boys come in, and they start shitting on Shiv's memo, which is definitely a big part of this episode. She sent it to Logan, kind of proposing new ideas, just an overall new proposal to the company about what they should do next. And they're all just shitting on it, right? They're just shitting on Shiv, shitting on this memo together, and it's really funny. It is really funny, and it's also kind of showing that she is really out of touch. Maybe even the things she's writing about are probably the right approach, like, just from a moral standpoint or from a practical standpoint, right? Maybe they are the right approach, but she's kind of so out of touch with the actual company and what are the, the going-ons, business and all this stuff, that some of these ideas are just ludicrous to Logan and Kendall and somewhat Roman, even because he understands this a little bit better than Shiv does. And so it's just a really interesting dynamic here, seeing them all laugh at Shiv. And of course, the kids are encouraged to do so because now they know that she's getting CEO. So they're in constant competition with each other. And both of them, I will say again, with last episode, it's like the first time we've seen Roman and Kendall unite on something. And it was them united over the disdain for Shiv, right? For Shiv joining that conference panel. And so definitely they are not with her right now. All right, so the morning after they get to London, a story breaks out about the British boy who drowned in the car accident from season 1. Of course, that big finale, right? And so this story is about how the parents blame Logan for bullying their son before he went off and died in the car. Right, and what actually happened, I think Logan actually shouted at him or something like that. And of course, we know the reality of it, that Kendall went with them. He escapes from the car in the water, and the boy ends up drowning, right? Kendall doesn't do anything to save him. And all that stuff, right? We all know that. So Kendall basically wakes Logan up to tell him this, and this is a big story that breaks, right? And at least a significant one that would warrant him waking up Logan, right? And it's hilarious here because he wakes him up, but meanwhile Roman and Kendall think that Rhea is in the bed with Logan, right? And that that they slept together the last night. And so they're trying to debate whether or not they should open the door to the room and all that stuff. Just so funny. And the way then it goes in, where he opens the door, he goes in the room, and he's like suspecting Rhea to be in the bed with them. And then Logan just like turns up and he's like, where am I? So just hilarious. And of course he's alone. Rhea's not even there. Anyways, so he wakes Logan up. And then they have this phone call with Jerry and Hugo, as Jerry and Hugo suggest that he meet with the parents of the of the boys, to formally apologize so that they can spin it, so that Stewie and Sandy are just using the dead boy as a chip, right? As kind of this playing, to play this chip or to play this story against Logan, by using this dead boy and trying to spin this narrative around it, which is a really smart idea, right? You go and apologize to the parents, you get coverage of that, so you see that, so that you portray, Logan actually cares about the family, he went to apologize, well, meanwhile, Sandy and Stu are just trying to use this kid as ammunition against Logan, so a really, really smart idea. And Logan agrees, and reluctantly goes to see the parents, but interestingly, he brings Kendall with him. So this is a really interesting development here, and it was a really great scene with Kendall and Logan playing this out, and them deciding that they are going to go see the parents, and then Logan says, well, I think you should come with me, right? And Kendall is just kind of taken aback by this. And we see this where, he kind of hesitates and he's like, yeah, okay, yeah, sure. Like, I'll go with you. Yeah. But I think like both like Logan and Kendall here know exactly the situation behind this. And so this was a really interesting one here where Kendall is forced in this situation by Logan. And that's probably one of the biggest questions for me this episode is, why does Logan do this? And that's a really interesting thing, and I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on that one, because I'm not totally sure about why that is. Anyways, so once they get to the boys' house, or the parents' house there, he makes Kendall come inside the house with him. And so this is an interesting one too. Logan says, well, it would look stupid if you're just sitting here in the car. Like, you better come in, right? Come in. And of course they have the photographer there at the front lawn taking pictures and all this stuff. So, of course they're going to spin it so that Stewie and Sandy are using this, as a tool, right, as ammunition against Logan. Well, the whole thing is just a setup by Logan. He doesn't really care that much about the parents. He just cares about the photo op and all that stuff, right? But I mean, do you really blame him? With Sandy and Stewie launching these things against him and all this stuff, he has to have somebody there to take photos and trying to push back against it. Anyway, so he makes Kendall come inside. And this is probably some of the best acting I think I've seen from Jeremy Strong. I've seen him in, I think, 3 other projects, and in succession. I think this is the best acting that he's had to date in the show. Maybe the finale as well. But he nearly has a breakdown. as he walks in this house, and I just love the way that they film this scene. So he nearly has a breakdown as he kind of has this. And just him just walking in the house in general just causes him to have this like anxious, just basically this nervous breakdown while he walks in the house. But also, what makes it worse is the sight of this of the boy in pictures around the house. And as he walks into the kitchen, he sees even more pictures of the boy and all this stuff. And this even breaks him down to tears, where he starts tearing up a little bit. I mean, not, full-fledgedly, like, bawling, but he is, tearing up, and this is, like, really impacting him. And I love the way, again, that this is filmed, not just, from a direction standpoint, where I love the direction as well, because what they do is, this scene plays out, the entire scene plays out, where we don't even see Logan talk to the parents, but instead, we focus solely on Kendall sitting on, in the kitchen at the table. And that's the only part that we see of this scene, and at the very end, we see Logan walk out of the room and Kendall go with him. So Kendall actually never talks to the parents, we never see that interaction play out, but instead we only focus on Kendall. So that, from the direction standpoint, is good, but then also just the camera work of this scene is just amazing, where they do these close-ups of Kendall up in his face, right? And just, again, like I said, amazing acting by Jeremy Strong that makes this scene even better. So just an amazing sequence that plays out here from an acting, directing, and just, general camera work angle of things here. Just an insane scene. So, again, though, this makes me ask, why would Logan put him through this? And I'm just, like, so my thought is, he genuinely wanted him to feel bad, as he thought that he did a terrible thing, right? So he actually wanted Kendall to experience this, because he felt bad for the parents, because he felt bad for the boy, and he thought Kendall maybe could have saved him. And so he really does want to put Kendall through this. He knows it's going to be terrible for Kendall, but he puts him through it anyways as punishment in a way, right? Because he just covered it up and Kendall hasn't really had to do anything about it. Though I'm not sure if Logan would actually see it as a terrible thing that Kendall did, because I think Kendall is paramount to anything else for Logan and the image of the company. And so I'm really not exactly sure why Logan would put him through this. But I think Logan does have a conscious, belief that, like, this is what was going to happen when you take Kendall in that house. And so it's really interesting. Again, I love to hear your guys' thoughts on that. And I do love this touch where we see Kendall go back to the house that night and drop some money in their door, as he just feels absolutely terrible. We see him almost like fall off the porch as he's just in this state still, in this anxious state that he just can't get out of. Anytime he's even near this, right? And so just a really great scene that plays out here at the end when he arrives in the taxi. Of course, he tells the mom that he's at the pub, but this is where he really is, right? He's going back to the house and dropping them some money in there. So, anyways, I think also, if you want to talk about that, that just shows that Kendall's way of, showing remorse and apologizing is just giving people money. And, let's be honest. I mean, I don't think he could have talked to the parents. I don't think he could have handled that emotionally. And so maybe that is why he gives the money. But I also think from that perspective too, it's like, well, that's the only way he knows, is just to give people money, right? And that's also a kind of a terrible thing as well. But anyways, that's that. So Shiv and Roman then arrive at their mom's house, who we met in season 1 at the wedding, of course. She played a big part in that. So Kendall's gone at the pub, as I said, but really he's at the house. And so he's not there, right? Kendall's not there, so it's just Roman and Shiv. Who, of course, Shiv has just flown in, right, to see the mom as she requested her. So the mom knows immediately why they're there, right? She gets right down to business as they sit down for dinner, which is pretty measly compared to Logan's meals. So Roman offers her what Logan told him to, and she calls this bluff right away, right? He says, like, his upper offer was $40 million, right? His upper offer is $40 million, and she's like, okay, so it's 50, right? So she just calls this bluff right away, of course, which it is 50, and Shiv actually comes to Roman's side here. She kind of straightens it out a little, and kind of talks to her mom a little bit, because Logan would not have been happy if Roman comes back to him and says, we agreed to 50 million, right? So, that's not going to go over well. So Shiv gets it a little bit better, and their mom eventually states that she wants either the Summer Palace or that they come home for Christmas and only 20 million. So, and it's just like, really, right? Like, only 20 million. Anyways, I guess with this family and when you're dealing with that stuff, that really is, you use the word only in front of 20 million. But anyways, and so they have to come home for Christmas. That's the rule of this engagement. And of course, this is all about the divorce settlement. So these are terms of the settlement, and terms that she wants to tweak. So, you feel kind of bad for her in this scene, though. You really do, because she says, like, the kids never come, right? Like, to broker this deal, she has to make it so the kids come for Christmas, right? Like, how sad is that? But she makes a good point. She never even invites them. Like, she said, like, you never invited us for Christmas. Why would we be here? And so that's a really great point. And then we see later on with Kendall, it's like, why would they want to come for Christmas, and kind of deal with this stuff? And so, you really see, you feel bad for her, but then you go a little bit below the surface, and you're like, okay, that's why they don't come for Christmas, right? Like, it really is evident there. So anyways, so that kind of thing plays over well, and they agree to come home for Christmas and spend it with the mom. Who also has this boyfriend, Rory, right? And it's just her husband, I think. Anyways, that's a really great part as well. It also seems like Shiv and the mom have a closer relationship than the other kids. That was just kind of evident in the way that she's able to persuade her mother, unlike Roman is, and unlike Kendall is, as we see later. It just seems like they have a better relationship than the rest of the kids. And it's a good thing that Shiv came in after all, though, right? Like, she has this better relationship with her mom. She's able to persuade her a little easily. And so it's a good thing she came in after all, right? Like, Logan was going to leave her at home and not even send her to negotiate. And now she helps them out a lot. So probably a good idea to get her to come, right? And so a good deal made. Overall, I think both sides are pretty happy with this. Of course, Logan's happy because he doesn't have to do anything. He doesn't have to go for Christmas, right? And so she is back on board. She is confident in Logan again. And she gets her 20 million and the kids for Christmas. So we then see Kendall come back later that night. And this was a really, really great scene. So he actually wants to open up to his mom. He wants to open up to her about what happened with the boy who drowned and all this stuff that's going on. And I thought, this is really, really interesting because he hasn't been willing to open up to anyone about this yet. Not his brother, not his sister, not anybody. I don't even think what's her name again? Anyways, I guess his ex-wife, right? Anyways, and so he hasn't opened up to anyone about this. And I don't think he would tell Logan either if Logan hadn't found out about it. And so he's actually willing to tell her, though. He's willing to talk to her about it, which is just a really crazy kind of, insane. Like, it really takes you back because this is something that Kendall is not usually willing to do. And maybe this signifies that he actually has a closer relationship with his mother than we think. I don't know. But, and then we see the way the scene plays out is she puts it off. She says they can talk about it in the morning, right? And when that time comes, right, the next morning when they both wake up, Roman comes downstairs. Kendall's reading a note saying that she's gone. Of course, right? She's gone doing errands and she can't talk. And so Kendall's not able to open up to her about it. Of course, I think he knew at that point too that when she put it off, they just were not going to talk about it. So, again, this is probably why they don't come home for Christmas. Another reason why is that, when your son actually wants to talk to you about something, you leave, right? You dodge him. Anyways, so that's an interesting part too. But I just thought it was a really crazy revelation that Kendall was able to was willing to open up to her about this thing that's been facing him for the last 7 episodes at least of the show, but obviously months in that world. It's just really insane and a tough spot to be in for him. Really tough. So, all right, now let's get to the end here with Shiv. So this is probably the most interesting part of the episode. So we see from the beginning of the episode, Logan appears to be dodging her. He plans this trip to London without her, says that she should stay home. Very similar to our Justice and the way that episode played out. That's one of my critiques with this one, that it did seem a little repetitive at the beginning. Once again, Shiv stays home. Logan doesn't want her to come. And then she ends up coming, kind of saves the day, but kind of not at the same time. She kind of, screws things up for herself. Very, very similar storyline for Shiv in this episode, but regardless. So this leaves her out of the loop, as Logan intends to leave her out of the loop, really. I mean, and then he, like, accuses her of being out of the loop. Well, you left her out of the loop on purpose. So that's an interesting thing, too. Anyways, so she eventually arrives in London, as her mom wants her there, right? She requests that Shiv be there as well. So then, I guess the whole thing about the episode is that Shiv wants to talk to Logan about the memo, and we learned about the memo earlier in the episode, right, when they're all shitting on it, and so she just wants to hear his response to the memo, and so she comes to London to talk to him, because now he's gone to London, he's left her there, he's dodging her, so she goes to London to talk to the mom and to him. So as she arrives in London, she meets with Rhea first, who, of course, as we already know, has already spoke to Logan about Shiv and her hold on him. And Logan asks her, not actually asks her, he mentions it, and then Rhea kind of volunteers to help him with it. And so the whole way that this end sequence plays out is just remarkable. So Rhea, first off, she asks her if she could be with her dad romantically, right? If she would be okay with them sleeping together, which is really interesting. And it's like, it brings us, so they are fucking, right? They are sleeping together, as Roman and Kendall suspected. But I'm not sure if they are. I don't know. Anyways, that was just kind of a comedic moment there for sure. And Shiv makes this joke very, very blunt, as she always is, so we have to ask if we can fuck each other's dads now, or something like that, right? Anyways, and so Rhea is asking her permission in a way for that. And I'm not sure if this is just kind of to sweeten up Shiv a little bit for what's coming. I don't know. I'm not sure. Anyway, so she then tells Shiv that she should keep her options open about this whole situation, about her becoming CEO, and that she, and she can use that against Logan, right? She can say, well, I'm keeping my options open, Dad. Like, I may have this come up, so if this isn't going to happen, I might threaten to leave. I might threaten to go to this other job, or take this other option that's in front of me right now. Right, and so she offers this to Shiv and say, okay, go to Logan and say this might work, right? And then she tells her that Nan Pierce really likes Shiv, and that they have a CEO position open right now. Of course, as she was fired, she was the CEO. And so Rhea offers to put in a good word for her, and tells her that even if she doesn't take that job, or even get offered it by Nan Pierce, she can still use it as leverage against Logan, because that CEO position is open at the end of the day. And she could say, well, I might be going to Pierce and take that job if you're not going to give me the job here, and use this as leverage. And the biggest thing about this is we see that Shiv trusts her and values her opinion, right? And we see this earlier in last episode and the episode before. Rhea and Shiv have a good relationship here, and she values Rhea's opinion and actually trusts her. And the way the scene plays out, it's like, oh no, Shiv is actually taking this. She is actually, valuing her opinion. She's trusting her. She's taking this information that Rhea is feeding her. And it's just like, it's just terrible watching this happen. Watching Shiv collapse like this, right? Watching Rhea set her up like this. And so Rhea plays her so easily. And Rhea knows this too. Rhea knows that Shiv trusts her. And she just, vigorously plays her here. And just unapologetically. Just really, really, basically twists her so far, and then just plops her right in Logan's lap, and then he does the rest. It's just really an amazing feat by Rhea and Logan teaming up here. So we also get a little honesty here from Shiv, which I thought was great, possibly regretting her choice about leaving politics and leaving Gil. She says, I've managed to put myself in a situation where what does my dad think is my entire fucking universe. I really like that line, and I feel like that line is true to anybody under Logan, especially Kendall and Roman as well. Maybe not Connor, because he's kind of off on his own thing, but it's so true. It really is. What does my dad think is my entire universe? And that's true, I think, for everybody. For Jerry, for Hugo, for Frank, but especially then for Kendall and Roman as well. I think they all feel that way. But Shiv even more so, because now she's been offered the job. Anyways, so to end, like I said, basically falls right into Logan's lap. So Shiv finally meets with her dad, even after he leaves London. So he's still trying to dodge her, and so she ends up meeting with him, though. So she walks into the room. asking about her memo, and she finds out that he hasn't even read it yet, but he tells her that he does owe her a response. So essentially, he hasn't read it yet. He says he has an entree the size of Argentina, right? And so he hasn't had time to read it yet, but he will. He will read it, and he will get back to her on it. So she accepts it, she walks away, and then she turns back. And her turning back here was probably the biggest mistake she could have made. And Logan just uses this effortlessly, right? So she turns back. She says she needs to ask him if he's still, if it's still her for CEO, right? Is she still the number one choice for the job? And she tells him she feels things have changed, right? Especially about the comments and Argestes and all that stuff. She feels like things have changed between them and wants to discuss it. She wants to repair whatever problems they're facing. She says, I want it and you know I can do it. Basically saying like, why am I not the CEO yet? Like, I can do it. You know I can do it. I want it. Let's just do this already, right? Like, why aren't you making me CEO? In which Logan responds with, then why are you fucking me about? He says, putting your name in for the Pierce job, right? And again, like the whole way this plays out is just perfect for Logan. It literally just falls right into his lap, and Shiv just falls for it, just completely falls into the trap. So he tells her it's all over town now, and Nan Pierce is shouting it about that Shiv is going to take this job at Pierce and become the new CEO. Of course, this is all bullshit, right? Like, she just spoke to Rhea about it, right? And there's no way all this stuff has leaked and all these rumors are flying about after she just had this one dinner or one lunch with Rhea, right? So anyway, so Shiv says she is just keeping her options open, right? Basically saying exactly what Rhea told her to, which is completely the wrong thing and exactly what Logan wants her to say. So Logan says that they are family. He expects some bumps, but he does not expect her to get into business with the people who just backstab them. And again, like the look of this just looks absolutely terrible for Shiv. Just absolutely terrible. He says, we're family, and if you don't understand that, fuck off, right? He gets this like iconic fuck off. It's just awesome. Just awesome stuff by Brian Cox for sure. But anyways, so this just leaves her speechless. Logan walks out of the room and says, you know, if you don't get that, okay, we're family, but you don't go to the people who just backstabbed us and threaten me that you're going to take their job, right? We're not, that's just not happening. We're family, right? You cannot do that. And if you are going to do that, you're not getting the CEO job. You can just fuck off, essentially. And again, this just leaves her speechless. And like I said, falls right into the lap. And Logan gets exactly what he wants, right? So then later we see him talking to Rhea, thanking her for getting the noose off his neck in the form of Shiv. And so again, we see this was all a setup for Rhea to plant this idea in her head, and then Logan to use it against her later in this scene, which is exactly what plays out to perfection, really. And so again, it's such an interesting thing because Logan like describes Shiv as a noose to his neck. Like, that's how much of a problem, how much of an annoyance this is, that Shiv is begging to be CEO now, and he just, like, it's totally not for it. And I'm not even necessarily sure that he says, like, well, she's definitely not getting it. He just is so annoyed that she's so eager and so, like, always on him about it. And he finally got off his back. Because really, what is she going to say now, right? Logan basically used that ammunition, and Shiv really can't say anything. She really is speechless now about it. Just an insane thing, though, that Logan uses Rhea, and Rhea is willing to use Shiv all in this grand scheme to help each other. And so that partnership between Rhea and Logan is going to be some interesting to see going forward. So then we do see Shiv call Kendall at the end, telling him they have a problem in the form of Rhea. She says, is she there? I think we have, is she there on the plane? I think we have a problem. And she says, I think I got fucked. And yeah, you did. You definitely did, right? She figures it out, but I don't think she necessarily figures it out that Logan had Rhea do it. I think she just thinks that Rhea backstabbed her and kind of reported to Logan. I don't think she quite understands the whole thing of it, that Logan put Rhea up to it, which is like the most complete deception of the whole thing. So Logan now tells Rhea to put together a list of 2 or 3 outside candidates for CEO, because they're not even sure that one of his kids could do it at this point. And so he says, put together this list of 2 to 3 outside options for CEO. And things are not looking good for Shiv right now. Especially, like, they're going to start putting together a list of outside CEOs. Not good for Shiv at all at this point. So, anyways, that's where we're getting off the episode in this one. Alright, so in terms of a rating for this episode, I'm going to give this one a 4.5 out of 5. As I said at the top, I think this is probably the weakest episode of the season so far. Still great though. This is not a bad episode. Still probably one of the better episodes I've watched this year in TV. I love the show. But I do think that this was probably the weakest episode of the season. There's a few things. So, again, I think the pacing was a little bit unbalanced. That's something that I complained about with last episode as well. I think the starts to these episodes are just kind of slow, kind of methodical, until we actually get into something, which is about 25 to 30 minutes into it, which I don't have a problem with, but I just would wish that, okay, if you're going to do all episodes like that, then do all episodes like that. I don't know. These last couple episodes have just felt kind of like just setting up, and then it plays out. We get some really great sequences, and then the big ending, and then repeat. And I just want to see an episode like Safe Room, where it was like just from the beginning of the episode, everything played out, right? And there was less setup, less all this, and just got into it. And again, I guess that kind of. I guess that kind of depends on your preference, right? Your preference of what you want to see these episodes and how you want to see them play out, for sure. But that's just me. So I thought, again, it was a little repetitive after last week's episode. Again, them setting up this thing, leaving Shiv at home. They got to go to this thing, an important thing. Oh, a story breaks out midway through what their plan is. So that they have to go to that. They have to address that, right? Then they have to go and make this deal. And then the last episode, it was they have to go to the panel. So anyways, I just thought, it was very reminiscent of last episode, kind of a little repetitive. I would have liked to see things mixed up a little bit. And hopefully next episode, we're going to see that. The synopsis sounds like it's going to be quite a mix-up from the last couple episodes. So I am really looking forward to that. Shiv getting played badly here, and Rhea into the fold now, right? This is like the two kind of things coincide in this episode, and it's going to be really interesting to see that. I'm just waiting to see Shiv and Rhea kind of face off here going forward. That is going to be a great competition between the two. So now it's not only just Shiv versus Kendall versus Roman, it's Shiv versus Rhea, and then Shiv versus Kendall versus Roman. And so Shiv's got some obstacles facing her now. That's going to be really interesting to see. And my question is, when Logan says, put together this list of 2 to 3 outside candidates, does Rhea count as one of those 2 to 3 outside candidates? Will she be the dark horse to become CEO? I'm not sure, and that's something that is going to be interesting going forward. Seeing this relationship flourish in this episode between Logan and her, does that mean that it might be possible that Rhea gets CEO in the near future? We'll have to see, but that's definitely an interesting development. And I love the focus on Kendall's mental state. They've been doing this throughout the season, really, and I'm kind of wondering if they're setting up for something big with Kendall towards the end of the season, though I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. I'm not sure if I'm kind of going out on a limb and thinking that, or that is what they're going to do. It's so hard because last season, who saw that coming? Who saw that event in the finale coming? With the car crash and the boy dying and Kendall walking home, soaking wet. Like, just the visuals, the whole way that narrative played out. Who really saw that coming at that point? I remember watching the episode, I'm like, what? No, this is a dream sequence. No, this isn't real. No, it's a dream sequence. No, this is real. This is real. And so I'm just, like, I don't know what to think for this show, for the ending especially. And that is my kind of insane dark horse prediction. I'm gonna put it out there that Kendall may, try doing something. I think that foreshadowing before, where he goes up to the balcony and goes right up to the glass and all that stuff. I don't know. I'm not sure if that's what they're setting up for, which would be just absolutely heartbreaking to see. But Kendall's also been on the mend recently, so I'm not sure exactly what's gonna happen. But that would be kind of my insane, kind of out there prediction right now, that Kendall tries to do something. Not necessarily that he, dies or that he commits suicide, but he does something like that, along the lines of that, and punishes himself for what has happened, which we've already seen. So I'm not sure if that'll happen, but that's kind of my, like I said, my out there prediction, if you will, at this point. But I love the focus on his mental state. And like I said, with all that focus, I think there's going to be some payoff coming soon. And I think Naomi may have something to do with that as well. That's going to be interesting to see that relationship go forward. So for this one, I got to go with Shiv, played by Sarah Snook. I thought Sarah Snook was great in this episode, as she is in every episode. She really is kind of the sole I guess the sole. I mean, Jerry's there as well, but she's kind of the sole woman in the equation in this one, and she's great. I thought Sarah Snow was great. I think the dialogue that they give her too is really awesome, and there were some really great lines from her in this one, both comedic and dramatic. And I think Sarah Snook is really has that range, and she also plays this character to a T, really great. And Shiv just got absolutely played in this episode. Like just royally. So I'm wondering how she's gonna rebound, and her saying, I think I got fucked, like she figures this out at the end. And so how is she gonna retaliate against Rhea? And is she gonna figure out that Logan was the one who put Rhea up to it? That is gonna be interesting to see. But her, again, I've been saying this whole season, I don't think she's gonna get CEO. Every episode it looks like it's getting worse and worse and worse. This episode may have just been a plateau for her chance at CEO. I think it's close to 0 right now, but we'll have to see what happens. All right, guys, that'll just about do it for my thoughts of Succession Season 2, Episode 7. Thank you guys so much for watching this one, and I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts, as I said before, on this episode and on the season in general, and also some predictions if you want to share those as well. But anyways, guys, again, thank you so much for watching this one. I will see you in a couple days for Succession Season 2, Episode 8.